Let me get a heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, Can I get a heat check, 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 Let me get a heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check.
What's up, SML? We are back for Heat Check. We took a few weeks off. I had a couple sleepless weekends there, little vacation. But we're back, better than ever. I'm joined by my regular co-host, the Mad Bomber. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, excited for this. Not as excited about the last game, but...
Well, we don't have to talk about that. We'll just let that slide by the way.
All right.
But yeah, this should be cool. We've got a little mid-season report cards coming at you. Or maybe not cards, but at least a mid-season recap and grade. So taking a little look around the SML here.
All right, sounds good. So let's just jump right into it then. So the first team up is the Texans.
We're going to take up a lot of time anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll take up plenty of time. First team up, the Texans. He's 1-9, 197 points for, 322 points against. I got to give him.
Looking forward to Madden 22.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a D, just because that team it's not that good. He does have Watson, but he's lost Watson early on in the season, so it's tough when you're playing with a quarterback you weren't expecting to play with, and so I think where he's at right now, 1-9, I'll give him a D.
Yeah, I would probably be a little more favorable and say a C just because he is playing without Watson. Some of these scores are a little ugly. He does have a nice win over Future, 44-41, which is pretty impressive. I would like to see him keep a couple of these other games closer. Prime kind of smacking him around pretty good this past week. But yeah, all things considered, I mean, no Deshaun Watson. That's the only saving grace of that Texans team. So without that, there's not a lot to really use.
Yeah, and he seems to be kind of unsettled at quarterback. He's been going with Will Battle. Sam Darnold was the latest quarterback to trot out there. He had Jimmy Garoppolo. He can't seem to find the guy he wants. I think it's not going to be Darnold because he just had no touchdowns and 6 interceptions his last game. But surprisingly, his offense isn't bad. His total yards is 18th, and his passing yards is 15th. He did pick up, I think, Juju Smith-Schuster, so... If he can get Watson back, I'd expect him to pile up a couple more wins before the season's out.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's a little better than the record shows, but also tough division.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, it's not the easiest schedule, and playing the AFC West this season isn't going to help any, or not the AFC West, the NFC West, and the AFC West
that's
actually.
Even worse, yeah.
So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think he gets both.
Yeah. All right, so that's the Texans. Let's move on to the 0-9 Bears. What are your thoughts on Figs? You play him twice a year.
I do play him twice a year, and boy, it's an adventure every time. Figs has changed things up this season. He's completely abandoned the quick strike offense, the run the ball offense. He pretty much just chucks it downfield to Marquise Brown and his other speedster. It's not going well. For passing yards, it's okay. He's got 11 total yards, but unfortunately, it comes with a lot of picks, and his defense is just. They don't exist. Simply put, 46 points against per game here. There's not much to really say about that other than it's not working.
Yeah, he's last in every defensive category except for passing yards, where he's 25th.
Which is mostly because nobody can pass on him in the second half.
Yeah, you're only passing for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And the offense, 11th in passing yards, but he's throwing pretty much just to Marquise Brown, who's got 48 catches already. Nobody else even has half that. So picks up Marquise Brown, just going to spam him, I guess. Maybe that's how he's getting his enjoyment out of this season, because at 0-9, I'd find it hard to keep playing my games.
And they're not even pretty losses. We're talking 15 points against the Washington football team, 63, 52, 45, 46, 49, 41. His best game points against wise was week 1 with 31.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a bad spot to be.
It's not pretty. I mean, you're giving up, like you said, 46 points a game. That may be some type of record. I don't know. We'd have to get with Meats
Scoring
on that.
differential.
Yeah.
Scoring differential through 9 games of negative 250.
So for the Bears, I'm going with an F. Especially if we count the
I'm going with
offseason
F
coming
minus.
into this, because he traded away Wheaton, who was his best defensive tackle, another X factor leaving Chicago.
Yep.
Hopefully the Bears and Chicago, they'll get a more competitive team next cycle, possibly. But 0-9,
Justin Fields, baby.
giving them an F.
Yeah, F minus. I'll probably stick with F minus just because of that points against. Oh my goodness! At some point, you gotta stop somebody.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of failures, next up is Tiny. 2-8 with
My
the
heat
Seahawks.
check Darlene has quit on me.
Yep, he was supposed to be on here. Never messaged back. So now we get to tear him up. Surprisingly, though, if I told you he was 4th in the league in rushing offense and 9th in the league in pass defense, there's no way anybody would think he'd be 2-8 after that.
No, actually, hasn't he lost pretty much almost all of his games by 1 score?
Yeah, they have all been close. He's been kind of complaining about that in chat, that he'd rather lose big. He lost to the Bucks by
Ask
13.
Figs about that. I don't know.
He lost to the Rams by 17. So they haven't all quite been by 1 score.
Okay, so
But,
not 1 score,
but they've been closer than usual.
yeah.
But yeah, he's got the 4th ranked rushing offense. I'm not even sure how you do that, run the ball that much and lose that many times.
Especially this Madden.
Yeah, not something you would expect, but he does have almost 200 carries with his running back already.
Wow.
So maybe trying to spam
It's got to be turnovers, right? It has to be turnovers.
It's Tiny, so yeah, it's got to be turnovers.
Yeah. That's gonna do it.
Yeah, let me see what he's got for turnovers. Turnovers, Meyer already 11 touchdowns, 23 interceptions. So not exactly racking up
that's not pretty.
the touchdowns. Yeah. But 193 carries for his running back, 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. Definitely getting him some work. He's also his leading receiver by 13 receptions. So maybe he's trying to dev that running back. That would explain the 4th place.
Doing a good job. Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, 2-8. So if wins are your goal, not going to happen. But if you're trying to get a dev bump, I guess you can have an X factor on your 2-8 team. So with Tiny, I'd have to give him an F as well. The roster's not that bad.
No, the roster is actually pretty decent. He has a couple really nice pieces. So, I would have to agree with that. Obviously, his division is extremely difficult as well. But, even despite the division, there were some winnable games on the schedule that have not been won. So I'm gonna have to agree. It's not been the season that you were looking for Tiny Titans.
Yep. All right. So next up is the Bengals, 1-8 in a conference or a division that's actually usually pretty winnable. But right now he's at the bottom of that division at 1-8, and his interception numbers have not gotten any better. We've kind of talked about how Two-Step needs to practice throwing to just the Bengals and not the other jerseys. It's a little better, I guess. He's only got 25, but that's not saying much. Only 7 touchdowns to go with those 25 interceptions.
That's pretty bad.
I mean, if you look at his points for and his points against, points for is awful, 106. That's even lower than the bottom teams below him, significantly. And then if you look at his points against, though, it's only 222. Just looking at the bottom 7 or 8 teams here, that's the lowest by a pretty significant amount, other than Tiny's at 236. So his defense is playing fairly well. He's got the 7th ranked pass defense, 20th ranked rush, 12th ranked yards, and he's only giving up 24 points a game, but he's only scoring 11. And it's not like the offense is missing weapons. It's just, drive down the field, throw to the wrong team, ends the drive.
The offense actually has quite a bit of good weapons. I would even argue.
Yeah.
You've got Mixon. Obviously, John Ross is a freak. Tyler Boyd, 85 overall. Joey Forbes, 90 overall, 25, 90 speed. So he's got the pieces he could need.
Yeah, he's got a tight end, Barker, that's really good, and then obviously Joe Burrow. So
yeah,
I got to give Two-Step an F. He's taken a step back, or shall I say, 2 steps back.
2 steps back.
Every season, it seems he's just kind of regressing, and now 25 interceptions. Maybe it's a lack of just interest. You don't
Yeah.
see him around the chat very often. It's late in the cycle. Maybe he's just kind of, as Figs would say, mailing it in. Doesn't really care. So I give him an F2.
Yeah, I would have to agree. We came into the season, we gave him our challenge, our goal of, don't be at the top of the league in interceptions. And sure enough, that is exactly where he is. And it's led him to a 1-8 record in a winnable division.
Yeah, kind of surprising. All right, next one up is the Chiefs at 1-8. So Raider did win a game. And of all the games to win, it was against a 6-3 team.
Never saw it coming.
But that 6-3
sure.
team was KJ. And we'll get to him later, much later, actually, because he's going to be quite a bit higher up the standings.
Much later. We got a while to go before KJ.
So I know Raider kind of, I'm assuming, tanked last season to get his running back. And then the running back that was there at the top of the draft was not a speed guy. So right now he's still at 32nd in the league in rushing yards, 14th passing. His run defense actually 6th in the league. And it's funny because his points are 31st. But his worst yardage is 17th in passing. So it's probably due to his interceptions. He throws quite a few interceptions with Mahomes, and I think that puts the other teams where they don't need a lot of yards to score. Can't really figure out what is going on there in Kansas City, whether he's tanking or not, because there's really no reason to tank anymore. So a good win against KJ, so I'll give him a D-.
Yeah. I think another point too is to speak to the yardage. I've noticed in his games, a lot of his picks come in the red zone. The field condenses. He can't use the speed from Yates and from Hill, and the ball pretty much immediately goes to a linebacker or a safety. So I think that helps speak to the yards. Yeah, it's tough to give this team anything higher than a D. Holy smokes, Quinston Yates has 72 receptions. His next closest receiver has 26.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Hill
one guy
20.
he uses lots of drags.
Goodness.
And that guy's fast, so he's going to beat pretty much everybody across the field.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Hill and Mecole Hardman didn't fill that spot either, but
yeah. But like you said, once you get down into the red zone, that kind of doesn't help you anymore. And you got to find other ways to score, and that's where he's getting in trouble with the interceptions.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see the D just for beating KJ, but I think all things considered, this has to be another F. When you're looking at a 99 with Mahomes, you're looking at Tyreek Hill, who's regressed to a 97 with 97 speed, 98 speed Hardman, 95 speed Yates. This is a team that should have more than one win at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right, next up is the Jets, 3-7. So Lattin's got a couple wins under his belt. Currently, he has the number 2 passing offense in the league, 4th in total yards on offense. Defense against the pass, 32nd. Still giving up the big plays. User in the corner. Yeah. 19th in rushing yards, 27th in points against at 30. He's scoring 22 points, so he's at 19th for that. His run game, 30th. He's only getting 60 yards per game. But yeah, that's pretty impressive to have, the number 2 passing offense and only have 3 wins. Now, some of that could be from playing from behind, but I think a lot of it too is he's using the pass game a lot. For example, in a 10-point game against the Falcons, where Lawyer won 24-14, he threw the ball 25 times and ran it 7 times.
It's the anti-Madden 21 meta. I kind of appreciate it, to be honest.
He's kind of going about it the wrong way. He played the Bills the week prior before his bye, and even against the Bills, that was a little more balanced. 16 to 16 carries. He was actually pretty even in that game, and he ends up winning it by 3. But you can see then he plays the Titans, and he goes out and he throws it again 20 plus times. This time it was 27, and he runs it 12 times. So I know he's got a good passing game. Obviously, 4th in the league or 2nd in the league in the pass game, but he's getting one-sided and it's hurting him. If he stays a little more balanced, I think he might have a couple more wins. I'm going to give Lattin, I'm going to give him C minus, because he's got a really good pass game. Just can't put together wins by getting a little too one-sided.
Yeah, you read my mind on that. I was ready to give out the C minus as well, just because it is impressive. The numbers are good. I think he's getting closer. He needs to draft a running back. Looking at the running back depth chart, his two best guys are 77s. That's pretty much unusable in this Madden.
Yep.
Actually, it means that you haven't used them at all, because any running back that you even somewhat use shoots to an 85 X factor within 3 weeks. So, yeah, I think if he, keeps this up with the passing game, it looks like he's made some improvements. If he can, balance himself out, like you said, we could start to see some better results. But he does have to fix the defense, but that'll be probably for next cycle.
Yeah. I don't think there's time to do much.
Yeah,
this cycle.
I don't think that's getting better.
Yeah. Next up is the Bills. Bills also 3-7. The point differential not too bad there. I mean, he's obviously giving up more than he's scoring, but at least he's within 100. Unlike some teams. So
low standards here. But
the thing with Noel, he's bottom third in pretty much every statistical category. Not really he doesn't really have any one thing he can kind of lean on. And then he's got really his wins. He beat Latin pretty bad, 41-21. He lost to KJ. He lost big to Woods. He lost to Paulie. And then he beat October and he beat the Chiefs. So we've already talked about his 3 wins, all 3 of those teams, because they were all below him. So I don't know. Last cycle, everybody, or not so much last cycle because I wasn't here very long last cycle, but coming into this cycle, everybody talked about how good Noel was, and that division was going to be Noel and Paulie, and really it hasn't been. It's been Paulie.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how Noel does next cycle. I think this cycle's pretty much over for him. Maybe he gets to 500 at some point, but one cycle he was good, next cycle he's pretty bad. We'll see what that third cycle does. As far as from what I've seen, I don't know. Guys have played with him longer than I have, but I've been unimpressed. It seems like a lot of hype and no actual results on the field. So 3-7 is disappointing for Noel. I mean, he even traded last season his number 1 pick because he thought he should be better. So maybe there's something there and he's just having some bad luck. But I'm going to give him a D.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what his teams looked like last season. Obviously, Madden 20. I mean, every Madden ends up having a meta. So if he had players that fit into that, maybe it'd help boost the numbers up, the win totals. But I'm looking at this team, and this is a very good roster. You've got X factors, you've got a good amount of superstars. I don't know if anybody realizes this. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players 91 or above.
Yep.
Including a couple high 80s. So it's very interesting to see this team kind of as low as they are in all of their stats. I would have expected at least one area of the team to be better. I would have to go with a D minus. You can't go F because he has beaten the teams that are below him that he should beat.
Yep.
But other than that, there's really not a lot to hang your hat on. That's really been impressive about the Buffalo Bills here.
Yeah, it's been a rough cycle. He did have one playoff appearance, but outside of that, it's been pretty bad. All right, so next up is the Lions. Lions, brand new guy, Finn's in there. And I can't remember exactly which week he took over, but I think it was against the Bears. I think it was week 9. He beat Figs 41-10. Then he lost to you 42-10. And then just last week, 35-21 over Meats. And Meats 7-3,
no,
usually a playoff player.
He came in much earlier. He came in much. His first game was against Q.
Was it? Okay.
He came in, week 4.
All right, so he came in week 4. Then he lost to Q. He beat the Bengals. He lost to the Browns. Lost to Rowan. So he does have all 3 of the Lions wins.
Yeah.
So still, then lost to the Browns, Giants, and Vikings, and Washington. It's not bad losses.
Right.
And obviously an extremely small sample size. So I'm just looking at the 35-21 win over Meats, and I'm going to give him, just from what he's done in here, I'm going to give him a B+. number one, taking that team and turning it into something useful after Hova let the quarterback walk. Didn't bring in any other quarterback. He's had, Kerryon Johnson is his running back. I mean, he left Finn's pretty much a bare cupboard. He's got some really good corners, because he drafted a corner, I think, every year in the first round. And he's got a good receiver with Galladay and Wiggins, and then Hawkinson at tight end. Just nobody to throw him the ball and nobody to really run the ball. So I'm going to give him a B+ for what he's done so far, especially with that big win recently over Meats. Meats usually a playoff team, I think, just about every season, if not every season. So I'll give him a B+.
Yeah, I'm gonna go A- for Finns. A+ guy, A- season so far. I think he's done a good job adding things to the team in a very short. Obviously you're limited with what you can trade when you come in, but he's done a good job of adding Elam, adding a quarterback that he's actually going to be able to use the rest of the cycle. His losses aren't bad. I mean, he kept the game against Q close. Rowan, me, those were a little more lopsided, but big win against Meats. He drops 41 on Figs. So I think it's been an impressive season, especially considering he's getting used to a new team. He's didn't have a say in 90% of the roster, so there's really nothing but good things here to say about Finn so far.
All right, so
and he's great on first and goal.
Yeah. So next up is the Saints. Colts sitting at 2-7-1, and so we just talked about Latin having the number 2 passing offense in the SML. What if I told you we'd only have talked about 8 teams, and we've got 2 of the top passing offenses? Colt has the number 1 passing offense at almost 300 yards per game, 3rd in total yards, but only 16th in points, and then his 33 points a game he's given up is 30th on defense. He's really not using Kamara as much. We talked about Chisholm in Seattle having like 100, almost 200 carries. Kamara has 95 carries. So he's not using him quite as much. He does have 59 catches, so he's throwing him the ball almost as much as he's running the ball. And then again, he's got the rookie tight end Carney, 37 catches, Deontay Harris 27, Shelby 27, Joel Johnson 30. He's spreading the ball out a little bit more through the air when it's not going to Kamara. But Kamara only averaging 5.1 on the ground. He's kind of going back and forth between quarterbacks. If you watch his tweets, it's Gardner Minshew, the next greatest thing, and then a week later it's Joe Green comes back, and then it's back to Gardner Minshew. Not sure which one he's going to go with.
I don't know why he ever stopped with Joe Green.
Yeah,
I get that. I guess he was normal, but he was a very usable piece.
Yeah, and the way he throws the ball, you would think that he wouldn't be normal dev very long.
Right.
But he's another one. If you look at his games, that 70-30 pass ratio is kind of more suggestion than what he's actually going to do. Here's just for example his last game against Tiny. He threw the ball 25 times and he ran it 8 times in a 4-point game that he won. So I mean, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not true, but I think you need to be more balanced to do better, because the good teams are going to kind of key in on what you want to do, and they're going to stop you from moving the ball, unless you have Cam Akers, and then it's damn near impossible to stop you moving the ball on the ground. But
fix your pursuit angles, man.
That's right.
It could just that's the key. All you have to do
could just be pursuit angles are the reason my line.
Yeah, all you have to do is fix your pursuit angles.
Yeah. So I'm going to give Colt a D as well. 2-7-1 is low even by his standards. So he's definitely having a down year. So I'm giving him a D.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time figuring out what to even call this. This is a weird season. If you really look at the results here, I think I'm going to go with a C-. Obviously, I think he's missed expectations on. This is a team that we've talked about as potentially competing for his division title, and that's not going to happen.
And last season they did, up until the last week or two.
He's got a win over Grams, which is nice. He got the doors beat off of him by Dump. He loses to RD by 1 point. He loses to Paulie by 5. He ties Mike, but he also blew like a 28-point lead in that game. So like these games are all over the place. His team is all over the place. I don't really know what to make of it other than it's just very odd. So I think I'm going to go with a C-. It's definitely been disappointing, but there's enough like good positive things in there that I think kind of offset like some really bad games. Like, he lost 41-20 to Lawyer. So, I don't know. I'm just going to stick with a C- because it feels safe,
Okay.
and I can't figure Colt out.
All right, so next up is the Buccaneers and Field. He's also sitting at 2-7. Bottom 25% of the league in pretty much every statistical category, maybe bottom third. Just not really doing a great job with what outside of the secondary is probably a great roster. And I know he's got like, a really crazy work schedule, plays half of his games tired because he's just waking up. So I'm gonna give him a D because the roster it's a solid roster.
Yeah.
Like I said, if the corners are really the only weak spot in that secondary, but that's not the only issue he's got. It's not like he's, shutting down the run and moving the ball and everything, and just the pass game is killing him. It's pretty much everything. So I'm going to give him, what I say, a D? I'll give him a D+. Yeah,
D+ sounds about right. I think when you factor in the winnable division and the talent on the roster, this is another interesting team just because, most guys you would look at with this, you would think the interception numbers are very high. He's only at 12 picks.
Yeah.
Which, is not as many picks as you would think. He just seems to stall out on offense a little too often, and much more than you really should afford to with, Godwin, Michael Thomas, Ronald Jones. Obviously, his quarterback's an X factor, and not getting quite as many takeaways. Only 2 picks with Devin White. With somebody, having like a 94 speed or whatever he is, linebacker. You really want to be taking advantage of that. So there's some missed opportunities here. It's not as bad as it could be, but I'd have to agree that it's probably in the D+.
Okay. Next up is the Chargers, and I'm going to come right out and say I'm giving the Chargers an F. And here's why. It was just last season, I think, that he was complaining that he didn't get enough respect, and then I played him, beat him. Now he's 3-6. I won't say it's the easiest game I've ever played. I'll give him a step up from that. But between that roster and just the fact that he wanted all this respect because he'd made the playoffs, I'm giving him an F for going 3-6 because that's just not going to cut it. And let's take a look at his losses too. So I beat him week 1, 29-13. Then he loses to Future, 39-14. He beats Raider fan. So that's one of his 3 wins. He loses to Grams 26-0. He loses to Latin 23-21. He beats the Bengals 34-14. So that's another 1-win team. He beats Coop 28-14. That's a good win. But then he loses to Dan 49-21. He loses to Washington 24-21. So he's beaten the teams that, have 1 win. He did get a good win over Coop, but that roster and that team is, it's as mind-boggling as Kansas City only having 1 win. You should be winning more games with the Chargers, especially when you want to say you're not getting enough respect. So 3-6, I'm giving them an F.
Yeah, I'd pretty much have to agree with that. Obviously, we know the defense here is very good. They're holding their own 7th in yards, 13th in pass, 3rd in the rush, which is extremely difficult to do. But obviously, this defensive line is stellar. He's got a lot of very good pieces. But yeah, the offense just struggling. Like you highlighted, the wins aren't impressive. I thought he had a chance to upset Q, which would have bumped his grade up, but unfortunately he didn't pull it out in the end. So I think I have to agree with you. I think this is another team that's in the Fs as well, just based off of expectations and where they were last season, as well as who's on the roster.
Yep. All right. So next up is the Cowboys. So Grams, I can't figure Grams out. Last season he's hot, makes the playoffs.
Part of me thinks he does this just to screw with us.
Yeah, I don't know. Starts the cycle off 13-3. Looks like one of the hottest teams. Um, then has a couple down years. Goes, I think 500 one year, then 7-9. Then he comes back, has a big year. Or actually, I think he had another down year after the 7-9, like a 3-win
Mhm.
season. Comes back, has a big one last season to do pretty well, and then now back to 3-6. I don't really know what's going on. The offense not scoring a ton of points. I mean, it's almost even. His points for and points against. Um, he's yardage wise though. He's only sixth in giving up yards, third least amount of passing yards. So his pass defense is really good. It's just his offense, which is insane to me considering the amount of cap he put into those receivers in that offense
Mhm.
to have the 28th ranked pass offense. Um, so I'm gonna give him a D plus. Um, and it may be more for all the money he put in the offense and how bad the offense is doing. And then 3-6 after a playoff run. I think maybe Graham's is a product of the schedule. When he has a favorable schedule, he's able to beat the guys that he's probably that playoff tier, and he can beat the guys that are just below that. But when he gets a second place schedule or something like that, it hurts him. That's the only thing I can kind of see where what might
Yeah, he
explain
definitely
what's going
seems
on.
to be like that SML Mendoza line.
Yeah.
When you get above that line, he can't win the games. When he's playing people below that line, he can pretty much win any of them. He does have an impressive win against Klink, who's been playing very good football this season. He did beat Dump, although I know Dump has been slightly tuned out just with job and MLB The Show, obviously. A couple ugly ones in there. Q blew him out pretty bad. Mike beats him pretty good. Um, gave the Saints one of their 2 wins. Future blew them out. Um, doesn't make a lot of sense, as you were saying, with the offensive talent on this team. How they are not in the top 10 of anything offensive is crazy to
Yeah.
me.
Not even
So
top 10. We're talking he's 28th in passing
yeah,
yards.
yep,
That means there's
28 in
four
passing
teams
yards, 21
worse.
in rush, and
Yeah.
that's with Zeke, who has literally abilities that he can't fumble, and freight train, which is the best running back ability this year by a mile and a half.
Yeah, and I'm looking
Um,
at his you know, most expensive on his team. Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott. Those are his top 5 most expensive. His top 5 just top players overall. Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, Dak Prescott. Same 5 guys. But your
yeah,
offense is 24th in the league for points, 29th in the league in yards, and then 28th in passing yards, 21st in rushing yards. Something's
mhm.
not adding up there. Um, so
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, we knew that the NFC East was going to be a dogfight this season. I think I even highlighted that potentially, you could easily have 3, playoff teams from the NFC East, maybe even 4. I don't know if the math even works for that, but every single guy was capable of making it. So you knew it was going to be a tougher division. So I can't quite give him an F. But I don't think I can do anything better than a D plus.
that's fair enough, especially coming off a playoff year.
Exactly.
And then you look at, just in chat earlier today, everybody's putting up their top 12 or top 15 guys, and there's a couple guys that Graham's on that list, and I would be interested to see what his record is for the cycle because it's probably close to 500.
Hmm.
But speaking of teams that are pretty stacked and underperforming, now we have the Browns and Woods 5-5 with that Browns team. 327 points for, 243 points against. So this is our first one where we're into the positives here, and he's sitting right at 500. Um, rushing game, he's top 10 rushing offense, top 10 in total yards, third most points for, sitting at 32 per game. But his
He can move the
defense,
ball.
yeah, his defense is just awful though. 30th in yards, 30th in passing yards,
Can confirm.
27th in rushing, 17th in points. But um, it's an all-star team. I mean, it's literally a mutt squad, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's disappointing, but he's one of those guys that can put it together and beat anyone any given day. But he can also find a way to lose to just about anyone any given
Hmm.
day, and I guess that's kind of reflected in his 5-5 record. So I'm going to give him a D as well.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna roll with a C minus. just because obviously like this team is underperforming at 5-5, but it's also a team that can win any game that's on their schedule. He's been playing without Myles Garrett. I think that's, something pretty important to think about. Now, granted, with all the other talent on the team, losing one guy really shouldn't be that big of a deal. But I played him 3 weeks ago, I believe. Obviously in SML weeks. 49-42. The game was an absolute shootout. It looked a couple times I felt pretty comfortable, like I was going to run away with it. If you make one mistake, he is very quickly back in the game. He's either scoring quickly, he's pick sixing you with Denzel Ward. It's not a team that I want to see on my schedule ever. Defense has to be better. That's going to hold him back for me in the C-. That's just kind of unacceptable with the amount of talent there. But it's tough for me to go lower than that with how talented they are and with a couple of the wins on that schedule.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. All right, so our next team is the Titans, sitting at 4-5. And this is a team that really, kind of like we just talked about with Woods having stars everywhere, this Titans defense is intimidating to go up against, even without Clowney. And you just have to look right there. 176 points for, which is probably on the low side. It actually, points per game makes it 28th. 170 points against, which is good for 4th. So his defense is actually really good. Somehow he's got a positive point differential, but he's below 500. Best passing defense, second best defense overall for yards, 11th against the rush. It's just his offense. 32nd in passing, 32nd in total, 20th in rush with Derrick Henry. I give him a C, because he's pretty much right on par for how he's been all cycle. He's not overperforming his typical season. He's not really underperforming. Talking about the defense and the offense is whatever. At the end of the day, it's the wins and losses, and he's right on pace for basically where he's been all cycle. So keeping it at that, I'll just give him a C, staying right in the middle.
Yeah, I think C is the perfect grade for him. Looking at his team or his schedule and results, it's really just kind of that playoff hump. Anytime he plays somebody who's a playoff team, a consistent playoff team, he's dropped the game, which is really what this season has come down to for him. Again, he seems to be right at that SML Mendoza line that I was talking about.
Yep.
He did unfortunately get kind of shafted in that win against Meats that it looked like he had, but it took a couple bad bounces and pretty much just fell right in line with the rest of the season. Playoff team, it's a loss. If they don't make the playoffs, he beats them.
Yeah, and looking at his schedule, it's not going to get any easier. So that 4-5, it might not be very good, because he's got he's got the Jaguars, he's got the Colts a second time, and then he finishes against the Rams. That's 5 games where he's not going to be favored. So you're already looking at 4-10, unless he can pull off an upset somewhere along that line.
Right.
All right, so our next team is going to be the Raiders, and that's going to be Future, and he's coming off a big win, actually. Future just beat back-to-back weeks, I believe. I'll have to look at the schedule real quick, but I think it's back-to-back weeks of he beat Dan, and then he beat QP.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so he did beat both of those teams back-to-back weeks, which figures Future's getting hot, and I've got him in 3 weeks. 10th passing offense. Defense really isn't that good. 22nd overall, 18th in passing, 24th in rushing, and then 24th in points. So it's not really an intimidating defense. Offense is top 11 because he's 11th. 27 points per game. You can see there he's 12 points in the positive on his point differential. I gotta give him a B though. He's kind of fallen off, or maybe fallen off at least to start. He was a playoff team a couple seasons, and now he's sitting at 500. It was a rough start, but I think he's gonna pick it back up. So I think this is gonna improve from here.
Yeah, this has to be, one of the hotter teams in the SML. Looking at his remaining schedule, there's, definitely quite a few wins on there. So it looks like he should be a safe bet for playoffs. He did start slow, lost to Rowan in week 3. Clink smacked him down in week 7. He loses to the Texans, which I never saw coming.
Yeah.
So I think with those games kind of factored in, I think it's a C+ for me. But this definitely looks like a team that's gonna have a very strong second half, and that grade is going to be much lifted by the time the season closes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up is the Packers, 4-5-1. Mike sitting right along that 500 mark. Defense, bottom third of the league, all categories. Offense, he's got the 8th ranked passing offense, which I know he was talking about. Jordan Love just got his X factor or whatever last season, so he seems to be doing a better job airing it out. And really, what's most surprising is his touchdown interception ratio is 16 touchdowns to 19 interceptions, which may seem like a lot, but for Mike, that's not too bad.
Not too bad. Getting better.
So I'm gonna give Mike I'm gonna give him a C as well, because he's right about where he would normally be. So I'm gonna give him a C as well.
Yeah, there's really kind of just predictable here, pretty much right at that 500 line. Wins a couple games that you don't expect him to, loses a couple that he probably shouldn't. Big win against Woods in this past week here. I think C is perfect for Mike.
All right. Next up, and this is a team that, searching by record, you didn't expect to see this soon on the list, but it's the Colts and Prime, 6-4. 3rd ranked passing offense. Same thing. He's got Frank George with the X factor, and he's going to need to lean on that passing offense, because his already 25th ranked rushing offense just lost Jonathan Taylor for the season. I think that's going to be a big loss for him, but maybe not, because Taylor wasn't exactly lighting it up. He was already only averaging 4.5 yards a carry.
Right.
Not really sure what the reason was for that. It's kind of surprising, but got to give Prime. I mean, really, got to give him a C-. Coming off a Super Bowl, and then to start 6-4. I don't think he may only end with 4 losses, so obviously that may go up his grade, but not really a tough schedule left. He's got Meats, he's got Coop, DW, Coop again, he's got me, and then he's got Tiny in week 17. Very easily could win out, and then we're looking at a 12-4 team, which is, still a little bit of a slide from where he's normally at, but so far it's been a disappointing start. It could have been worse.
Definitely a little more disappointing. I'm going to be a little more forgiving and go with a B-. He lost a couple big players to retirements. He lost a couple X factors in there. His losses are not bad losses. Obviously, it's you, it's Paulie, it's Dan, and it's RD.
Yeah, they're not bad losses.
None of those you're and obviously the loss to Dan, he could have tied the game up and see what happened in overtime, but he went for 2 and didn't get it because he didn't know that if you flip an RPO, your quarterback's going to throw it to the popcorn vendor. So I can't really fault any of those losses. You're not taking the regular season nearly as seriously coming off a Super Bowl win, so I'm going to be favorable here, forgiving, give him a B-, and I'm not really going to worry much about this season. All he's got to do is make the playoffs, and he'll be okay.
All right, so next up is Dump and the 49ers. Dump sitting at 5-4. What do you think about him?
I think that he absolutely does not care one bit.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably fair.
Yeah, I think he's done.
He does have the 6th ranked rush offense, 13th in passing, 7th in total yards, and 9th in points. His defense is just bottom third, if not worse.
That's pretty par for the course.
And that's been kind of the like you said, that's been the storyline the whole cycle for his team. But with MLB The Show coming out, brand new job, I don't think he's that interested. So he gets a D for not being interested.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. This is clearly somebody who, Madden is not in the priority list right now.
Yeah.
Which, I get it. Coming off the job, and I just think to this point, obviously the big knock on him is he's always been a regular season warrior, and then as soon as he's made the playoffs, he's lost. I think the ship has sailed on much of a playoff performance for this cycle. We'll see what he's like in Madden 22.
All right, so our next team is is the Patriots 5-4 as well. Matt maybe starting to run the ball a little more because he has the 18th ranked rush offense and the 20th ranked pass offense. He's using Fox quite a bit, 51 catches. Camp, his running back, isn't doing too bad. He's averaging 6.6 a carry, 130 carries. So he's getting him the ball. Drew Lock, 11 touchdowns. That's not terrible. He does throw a decent amount of interceptions, but he's not on the level of some guys. He has 11 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, though, is already surpassing Mike. So anytime you're in Mike territory, you got to be a little concerned. So 5-4, though, I'm going to give him a C+.
Yeah, I think C+ is very fair, very accurate, because, this is a guy that I just kind of expect him to be around that 500 mark, win a couple more games than he loses. Not really shine anywhere offensively. If he were to commit to just running the ball like crazy, I think he could do better, but that's just Madden 21. There's really not a lot to say here. Maybe if PJ didn't blow the team up, maybe if the game took more skill like MLB does, we'd be talking differently, but we're not. So here we are. I'd say, C+ is totally fine.
So I'm going to throw a little conspiracy theory out there then. We've heard Matt say PJ ruined the team, whatever, right? I have Drew Lock. I'm just going to throw away the entire 3/4 of the cycle and throw the ball instead of running it. I'm going to say that Matt was an absolute fluke getting to the AFC Championship, and he knows it. And if he goes back to running the ball and everybody shuts him down and he doesn't get back there, everybody sees him as a fluke. So for the entire cycle, he can play I'm going to throw the ball, and everybody's going to think he's better than he is. So I'm going to throw it out there that Matt was an absolute fluke, and he doesn't want anybody to be onto him. But
Matt's out here playing 3D chess.
Yeah, here at Conspiracy Theories, though, we're always digging, and that's what my investigators have told me, is that he's just not that good, and he doesn't want anybody to know it yet. That's why he's throwing the ball and not going back to what worked that one season. All right.
Heat check, throwing shade.
That's right. We gotta get something stirred up here. So next up is the Falcons. Lawyer 6-4. This is probably one of his better starts for the cycle. Just 6 wins is probably already close to his top record for the cycle, as a matter of fact. But he's got the 2nd ranked rush defense. Unfortunately, 31st ranked pass defense. But on offense, he's actually one of the top offenses in the league yardage-wise. Total yards, the top-ranked team. He's number 1 in yards, 5th in passing, and 5th in rushing, combining for 14th in points. So he tends to, it looks like, bog down a little bit in the red zone. He's not putting up the touchdowns that kind of go with those yardage numbers. But dead even 14 points, or 14th in points for and 14th in points against at a 25-23 ratio. So he's playing pretty well. He's got a decent team. So I'm going to give him our first A, because of how he's doing compared to the rest of the cycle.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to go with a B+, just because I'm looking at the schedule. He's got a loss to Meats, loss to RD, loss to Dump, and a loss to Matt. So those are his losses.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of Matt, that's your 3 playoff teams, consistent playoff teams. His wins, you've got Saints, Panthers was a good win, Buccaneers, Seahawks, Jets, and he has Eagles. And if I remember correctly, that was the weekend that Clink went rogue and got super blackout drunk, and we didn't hear from him for like 3 days.
That's very possible.
So I'm not entirely sure about the quality of wins that I can quite throw an A out there yet. But he's definitely playing his best football of the cycle. He's very hot, won a couple games straight. Schedule is very doable the rest of the way. So, maybe we can see this team sneak into the playoffs. If he, continues momentum, this could absolutely end up in an A+ season for him.
Yeah, and that was kind of where my A came from, is those games you mentioned that he's winning are games that he wasn't winning early in the cycle.
Yes, I do.
So he has improved, and he's, 6-4 winning record all the way into week 11 is definitely an improvement. And he could take this division, because the next team we're going to talk about, the Panthers and D-Mews, I guess, I don't know. This is, we had maybe there's something in the water there in Carolina, because before D Muse we had Royce, and he went MIA and just well, he really just held up the league, and he was a different kind of missing. D Muse just put his team on autopilot. He's gone. There was flying by or whatever it's called. That went
It did
by.
fly by.
Yeah, it flew
It did
by.
fly by, that's for sure.
Should have just called it the flyby. It was here 1 second, gone the next. He's probably one of the owners in the league right now that you forget he's in the league. He did do a first and goal the other night, so I remembered he was here. But he kind of, I know he moved
Was he on
recently.
vacation?
I think he is on vacation right now.
I know he moved.
So he missed.
I saw something in chat today.
Yeah, he
Came
missed
back.
2 games, Paulie and Field. So both of those were computer games, and he's 1-1 in those 2 games. So
Something about the Panthers and computer games.
yeah, there's something there. I'm gonna give him a C minus, mostly for just not being around as much, and I mean, his losses aren't bad. It's actually to you, QP, and Paulie as the computer, and then the one more, the Falcons. So I mean, his losses aren't bad, but he's kind of forgettable. Other than that one an appearance on first and goal that reminded me he was in the league.
Yeah, I just don't think he's been present enough to really get a legitimate grade for this season. We'll see if that changes in the second half here, but I really can't disagree with yours. So we'll just roll with that and move on.
Yeah, and on top of that, one last thing about him is, this is a guy that 2 seasons ago was in the NFC Championship. Now, granted, he had the computer game, but he was playing pretty well. It's not like he snuck in as the wild card.
Yeah.
He was playing pretty well. So maybe he turns it around. I know dating back to last season, he was moving. So there could be a lot going on there to take up some time.
That was maybe the longest move of all time.
Yeah. He moved 1 piece a day. So enough about the Panthers. Let's move on to the Cardinals. Cardinals and Meats, number 1 ranked offense running the ball. Is Letty Brown, 143 carries. One of the top usage backs. Passing game, though, 31st in the league. And then his defense isn't bad. He's only given up 17 points a game. 8th in passing yards, but 21st in run yards. So you can usually run against him. 7-3, coming back off a season where he almost missed the playoffs. He did sneak back in at the end. But he's got wins against Lawyer. That's a winning record. He's got wins against Clink. That's a winning record. He beat Dump, another winning record.
No, he lost to Clink, didn't he?
Oh, you're right.
He lost to Clink,
Never mind.
35.
He lost that one. So 2-1.
Coop, I think you're looking at.
Yeah. So he's 2-1 there against teams with winning records. Then he lost to the Jaguars, 2-2. And next up, he's got the Colts, the Rams. Then he gets a break against the Texans, but then he's back to Panthers, Rams, and 49ers. So a tough end of the schedule. He doesn't really have any bad losses. So I'm going to give him a B, because he's off to a much better start, kind of picking up where he left off at the end of last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this grade gets an incomplete. This second half of the season here is really going to tell you about Meats. Those are some brutal matchups, and to have them all in a row is never fun.
Yeah.
He's doing exactly what we all expect. Not throwing the ball, runs it a ton, runs it with the quarterback. Defense, a lot of speed, playing very well. So, I think B is completely fair for how the season's been so far. He really hasn't lost any bad games. So, we'll see what happens with the second half of the season, but B is definitely fair for now.
All right. Next up is the Rams. I'm going to give them an A+ for the game that they just beat me. But in all seriousness, he's had 2 big wins since losing a game on a fair sim against Dump that probably shouldn't have been a fair sim.
That was a tough one.
Because I'm pretty sure Dump overslept or something where he didn't make the game, and then Prime fair simmed it. In his defense, though, he should have probably told Prime, hey, this is the situation. Because throwing stuff in the main chat during the draft or whenever it was moving pretty quick. But since then,
to find if we had Discord, but here we are.
But since then, 35-9 against the Colts, 42-28 against me. And then his loss is obviously the force win, or not force win, but fair sim against Dump. He lost to the Panthers, and there's one more that I'm forgetting. Oh, he lost to you.
Right after the Panthers. Yeah.
Yeah. So he lost those 2 in a row. Since then, pretty much been on fire. He did only have a 1-point win over Colt and a 3-point win over Tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny seems to play him fairly well.
Yeah,
So I'm going to give him an A+. I think he's going to be the team, one of the teams in the NFC Championship. So top 5 defense, top 10 offense. And then Cam Akers is just unbelievable. I got to see that firsthand.
He's busted.
And I'm fine if I don't see it again. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I give him an A+.
Yeah, hopefully you never have to, but sadly I have a feeling I'm going to be seeing it again. I'm not looking forward to it. Also a big point here, he's been playing since week 4 without Aaron Donald. This was his first game with him back, and he made an instant impact.
Yeah, he did.
So I think that's something to factor in as well. I definitely think an A- and A is fair. I can't go A+ just because I think you would need wins over me and the Panthers for an A+. But wins over you and Prime, and then an unfortunate loss against Dump, I can definitely go with an A here, especially without Donald.
Yeah. All right, so next team is going to be the Eagles. This one's kind of a surprise, so I'm going to give him an A as well because I didn't expect him to be 6-3. But he has the top 5 run defense, top half of the league in the other defensive categories. His offense, 4th in points, defense, 7th in points allowed. Not the greatest roster, and he's doing pretty well with what he's got. So I'm gonna give him an A.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think for him to make some serious noise in the NFC, his passing offense is gonna have to get better. He's only averaging 180 yards a game there. But his defense has really stepped up, and that's a team that was very barren with defensive pieces when he took it over. So he's done a great job building up there. We had preached for a few seasons that there was a next level to Clink that he hadn't shown yet, and I'm happy that it started to come out this season. One hump he has to get over seems to be Grams. He really struggles against Grams. But other than that, you really can't complain with this season at all. So
now,
I'd have to go with an A.
Now the only thing I will say, I'm giving him an A right now because of 6-3, and he's doing pretty well. That can change very quickly over the rest of the season with Rowan twice, QP once, Dan, actually QP twice, and then even DW on the roster, and Grams. Grams and DW, the only 2 above 500 teams that he's going to have the rest of the way, and he does not have a win over a team that's above 500 yet. So
interesting.
An A for beating who he can, but or who's in front of him. But those 3 losses
well, he wasn't doing that the other seasons, so
yeah, exactly, and that's why I'm going to give him an A. It's still an improvement.
Yeah, He's definitely going to have to split at least against Rowe. He has to beat Grams the next game. You can pretty much chalk Dan up as a loss most likely and be okay. But as long as he splits, I think against these division guys and beats DW, I think he should be okay. So hopefully we see him in the playoffs, because I do think that he has a little bit to prove there.
All right, so next up is Paulie. Paulie, he has 3 losses: NYT, Dan, and Field. That's his only 3 losses. NYT, kind of surprising. That got into a shootout. It ended up 34-32. Dan 24-6. He pretty much had his number the whole game. I think he had 1 or 2 pick sixes. Just couldn't get anything going on offense. And then Fields beats him 28-24, which is, everybody occasionally has an upset. So we'll chalk that up as an upset. But outside of that, he's beaten Prime. He's beaten the Panthers. Panthers was a computer game, though. He beat Matt, and then he beat Woods. So Paulie's probably right about where he usually is. Maybe he's got a couple games he would have normally won, and also maybe a couple he would have normally lost. So 7-3, I'm going to give him a B+. 12th ranked offense, 6th ranked defense. It's 7th in rushing yards. This is the same Paulie we've seen all cycle for the most part, but he's doing it without Breida this season.
Hasn't he done it without Breida every season?
It does feel that way.
Yeah, I think B+ is totally fair. I think this would be in the A's if it weren't for that loss to Field. I think that docks him just a little bit. win over Prime is impressive. This is, like you said, this is the same old Paulie. I feel like this is the same regular season he's had every season. We'll see if it gets different in the playoffs, but to this point, he just has not shown that he can consistently beat you or Dan when push comes to shove. He seems to consistently beat Prime, so
Yeah, he
if
does.
he ends up with that matchup, he can, maybe do something. Although, knowing Paulie, he might just lay down and give up if he plays Prime in the playoffs, just so that he can cheer Prime on in the Super Bowl.
All right, so next up is the Steelers. Who would have thought we sorted by
Wrap it up.
sort by standings, and we've already talked about Prime, RD, Paulie, Dump, all these guys, and now we're gonna finally get to KJ. So surprisingly, if you're wondering how KJ is 6-3, with the 26th ranked scoring offense, 30th in yards, 29th in passing yards, 18th in rushing yards, first in run defense, 5th in pass defense, first in overall yards, and 9th in points against. He's quietly put together one hell of a team. I mean,
Yep.
Now granted, you picking in the top five straight years will help with that. But he's assembled a pretty good team, and he's starting to play a little better as well. He's got that X Factor quarterback, Jack Adams, who's taking care of the ball a little bit better than before. He's still 8 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, but again, it's all about improving. And he's improved the roster, and now he's improved his defense, which is really keeping him in games quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and his wins aren't all bad wins. I know somebody said, well, he's only beaten the bad teams. He opened up the season with a 30-24 win over a 500 Browns team that was coming off a playoff win. So that's not exactly all bad wins. He did get blown out twice.
Beat the doors off of Mike.
Yeah, beat Mike. Did he beat Mike? He didn't play Mike.
Yeah, in week 4, 45-14.
Am I missing? Oh, I am missing that. Yeah, there it is. 45-14. So he did beat Mike pretty bad.
Yep.
Now, granted, no, everybody says it's an easy schedule. It's KJ. He plays an easy schedule every season. Because every season he's been the bottom.
Changed.
So, putting up 1-2 wins, it's the same schedule that he's played every year. So he's obviously improving. And I'm giving him an A+, 6-3. You're talking about coming off a season where you were at the bottom of the league. Now you're getting talked about before, after Prime, after Paulie, after RD, all those guys.
Yep.
So regardless of what the schedule is, he's winning the games he's supposed to. So A+ for KJ.
Exactly. Yeah, A++ if he could beat NYT, but to this point it's not looking good there. But A+ for sure.
Now the rest of his schedule isn't going to be super easy. But I was looking at it earlier, and he could be a 10-win team. Realistically, he's got you. That's probably a loss. He's got Paulie. That's probably another loss. He's got Matt. Matt's 5-4. He's got the Browns again. He already beat them once. He's got the Jets. He's got the Bears, and he's got the Lions. Jets, Bears, Lions should be 3 wins for KJ. That puts him at 9 wins. All he's got to do is win one out of Browns, who he already beat, Matt, who's sitting just above 500, and then maybe a crazy upset against you or Paulie. You look at it at 10 wins for KJ in a playoff appearance. So yeah, I even give him, like you said, that extra plus, A++.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Another team we probably didn't expect to see this high up on the list, Rowan. Rowan's sitting at 7-2, and I noticed he's a little more quiet than he was after that 4-2 start last year. Because as soon as he started chirping last year, I think he lost like 5 out of 6, and the season turned around rapidly. 4th ranked run defense, top 10 in all offensive categories, including 5th ranked overall scoring offense. He's added some nice pieces in Lawrence and Chin to his defense, and then his offense was always really good. The quarterback, that Pearson, seems to have really started to improve quite a bit, and so I gotta give Rowan an A.
Yeah, I have to agree. He's had a great season. His only really rough loss was to Dan. He finally got over the hump. He beat Q for, I think it was the first time this season, 21-20. So close game, but that's a game that previously he probably would have lost. He's got a nice win over Future. Takes care of business against Grams. He blew Figs out of the water, which there's some pressure on when you talk, and we've kind of seen that Rowe Figs rivalry build up. When you kind of talk the way that you do, sometimes that can put added pressure on a game. It was nice to see him take care of business there. He had me dead to rights. He did drop that one, but that was a great game. His defense played awesome. Took care of business against Fields. So, he's having a great season. We're starting to see the pieces come together. His offense is getting a little more fluid. I think this has been a great start for Rowan. Definitely can't argue with an A.
All right. Next up is QP in Washington. He's at 8-2. His 2 losses were week 1 to Rowan and week 11 to Future. So I don't know what to kind of make of him. I'm gonna give him a B plus because I think Rowan and Future were games he should have won. And then outside of that, he really hasn't played too many good teams. Really, the Panthers are the only team with a winning record that he's played outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
And he
His
beat them.
His schedule is extremely backloaded.
Yeah, and he beat them by 3. And then, like you said, it's backloaded. So you got Broncos, Eagles, Vikings, Rams, Eagles, Giants. Every single team with a winning record.
That's right.
So that'll really, really show where he's at. I give him a B plus. He's winning what he should for the most part, but that back half of the schedule is really gonna show what he is with Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an incomplete grade to this point. B plus. He's taking care of business when he should have. He's been pretty much exactly what we expected. He's got a very good offense. Defense has been slightly shaky at times. But he's winning the games he needs to win. So we'll see how the rest of this season plays out before we can really tack on an official grade there.
All right, next one is Dan. Dan's sitting at 8-1. His lone loss was to Future 2 weeks ago. And he's beaten some good teams. He beat Prime by 1 on that game where he went for 2. He beat Paulie. He beat Future earlier. He beat Rowan 35-7. So Dan pretty much doing what he should be doing.
Doing Dan-like things.
Yeah. Nothing really crazy or unexpected. So I give him a B plus. That loss to Future kind of knocks him down a little bit. So B plus.
Yeah, I'd go A minus. I mean, this is just Dan. This is what we expect. He's taking care of business. He's not overly committed in any one area. Just pretty much average, not average, but above average across the board. Every offensive stat, every defensive stat. Play smart football. He lets his opponents make mistakes. He takes advantage, and the guy just wins games. Dan just wins. So I'm gonna go A minus here.
All right. Next up, my Jaguars 9-1. I'm gonna give myself a B plus. The loss to RD still a little fresh. It was bad though. I couldn't stop Akers at all. Baker had 4 turnovers in a little over 3 quarters. But the offense actually didn't look too bad, even with the rookie in, outside of those turnovers. So the rookie was a little bright spot there. As bad as my offense has been, it's still 10th in points scored for the season. So I didn't even, until I just looked at that, didn't realize that. 3rd ranked defense, even after giving up 42. So I'll take a B plus. I do have a couple good wins. I beat Prime. Beat Meats, beat Dump, beat NYT. Rest of my schedule, not too bad. I do have Dan and Prime back-to-back in 15 and 16. So we'll see how it goes the rest of the way, but I'm going with a B+.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little more forgiving. I think you're probably docking yourself a little bit just based off of the fresh loss. I'm going to go A- here. Even in a season where, adjusting to a new quarterback, the offense hasn't quite been as fluid, to still be 10th in points for is pretty impressive. You've had a couple, like you said, a couple really nice wins, NYT, Dump, Colt. Honestly, the win against Raider was impressive because you went down 1 million in like the first 7 minutes somehow. Stormed all the way back, played a super clean game after that. I thought that was a nice win in adversity and what had been, an adjustment season. So, I'd go A- for you. I don't think there's much to worry about in Duval.
No, not too much to worry about. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out, though. So number 2 on this list is the Ravens, 8-1. again, we talk about guys that haven't really beaten winning teams. He's beaten KJ twice. But outside of that, he really only had one other or two other. Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. I take that back. He also beat Paulie, 34-32. So he's actually 3-1 against teams with winning records, with two of those being KJ. But he's winning. That's something that the NFC or AFC North we hadn't seen consistently, is some team there consistently winning, and 8-1 is about as consistent as you can get. He does have the Bengals, Browns, Raiders, Bills, Browns, Vikings, and Bengals. I see maybe 2 games there he should lose, being future and you. He plays the Browns twice, and despite them being, the 2 teams that battle for the AFC North, he's got Woods' numbers. So I definitely see him easily running away with the division, and quite possibly challenging for that number 1 seed in the AFC. So I'm going to give him an A.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I would even argue that I could give him an A for this season. The win against Paulie is huge. He's not dropping any games that, in the past he, might have dropped one to Mike, or, dropped one to KJ at this point. So, I think he's done a great job of, taking care of business, finally really just putting the foot on the pedal and going, finally showing that offense can be lethal. The defense has been very good. I would even favor him against Future in week 13. So, this could very easily end up being, a 2-3 loss season at worst. So, I'd have to go with an A+ for NYT.
All right, then the next team and the final team is your Vikings. Obviously an F at 9-0.
Clearly, yeah. We're bombing everything.
Big wins against the Panthers. Panthers are a team with a winning record, beat them by 15. Ended up beating RD by 7. Beat Clink by 17. Beat Rowan by 3. Beat a 5-5 Browns team by 7. And then obviously all the other, 9-0, you won all the games, but those were some of the ones that would have been tougher matchups. You do still have a 6-3 KJ left. Mike twice, he kind of played you tough last season.
Always does.
Yep. And then you have QP left, and you do have one against the Ravens, and then Graham's kind of snuck in between those 2 teams. Obviously, undefeated with some good wins has to be an A+.
Yeah, I would probably I don't know if I'd go A+. I don't know if my schedule's been A+ worthy. The win against RD is huge. Felt nice to get that monkey off the back. It had been a couple seasons since I'd beaten him. The win against Clink felt good. Rowan, all the ones that you listed. Happy to see top 10 in run defense. That's really been the big focus on this season, has been just not getting gashed there like I have been. I've no complaints to this point. My schedule, I don't think, has been the toughest or as tough as, some of the ones that I've seen. So we'll see how we'll close out, but, happy to give myself an A to this point.
All right. So that's going to do it for this week of Heat Check, I think. Unless you've got anything else you want to touch on, we're at
good to go.
An hour and almost 15 minutes. So
right around normal.
Yeah, we left out a little bit of stuff. We didn't do our picks as normal or our around the league, but we did a midseason report card, and I think that went pretty well.
Actually, we really only did around the league.
Yeah, that's really it. So yeah, if you don't have anything else, then that's gonna be it.
I don't. I'm good to go. It's been a pleasure, SML, as always. We'll see you next time.
Let me get a heat check. Can I get a heat check? Heat check. Let me get a heat check.